Welcome to this video. Thank you so much for tuning in, sharing in this now moment with myself and with one another. If you haven't seen these videos before, welcome back if you have. My intention is unity and oneness. I really want to go into flow, but I also really want to share some really basic human updates. So let's start with the human updates. All the flow is human too, by the way. But I share this because oftentimes we can get really caught up in wanting to go into, it's nice to be in that flow state constantly. And I just want to share, as a human being interacting in this multidimensional reality, I am not always in flow. I do my best to be in flow. I teach how to stay in flow. I'm aware of how to stay in flow. And when I am in a state of flow and I find myself moving through life in that way, things tend to work out. They just tend to ride smoothly. If they don't, they're not a big deal. I tend to be in real time with messages, synchronicities. Everything kind of lines up where it needs to go to keep me in flow. And then as soon as I oscillate into fear or self-doubt, right? And I'm just sharing this because how many of you guys have been experiencing this? I oscillate into the what ifs, the future tripping, so on and so forth. I tend to then pull myself out of that vortex, and then I go into a different vortex, which is a bit more chaotic. I can't seem to stay grounded. I have difficulty really finding my words. I find myself questioning and doubting a lot of things. I find myself getting pulled into topics and conversations that really aren't in my lane. I find myself going into other lanes. And then I find myself spreading my energy out into all these different areas that then leave me feeling depleted, and I have a breakdown. I'm just giving this for instance, for an example. Anybody else experienced this? When I say breakdown, it could mean a literal breakdown, like my car breaking down this week. It could be my back going out of alignment, which happened in the last month. It could be, for some people, emotional breakdown, an overwhelm, feeling completely exhausted all the time. These are all different signs and signals from the universe for different reasons. Now, I'm going to just play with that for a minute because we could easily go into the blame game and say, oh, I should have this or that and I didn't, and I'm such an idiot, therefore this happened, and that would take us into a vortex of self-judgment, right, or self-blame, which could take us into a vortex of anger. We could get angry with ourselves, or we could come into a place of poor, pity me, victim self, or feeling a sense, whatever it might be. I'm taking us into all the different vortexes here to play with us. And I've been there. But my point is, some of the things all of us, many of us, are going through this right now. We've got heightened solar activity, which really has a strong impact on our bodies. More and more people are talking about this. I will never stop talking about it as long as I feel it's important. I'm happy that so many other people are covering it now after years of wondering, is it just me? Surely it can't just be me. Although I'm sure me covering it, somebody else had already been covering it for years too. That's just how it works. I certainly wasn't the first person to start talking about it. And this is becoming more and more relevant for our well-being. Recognizing the food sources that we're eating, but it's all about patterns. And for me, because this all happened for me recently, I got this massive sunburn, still recovering from that, which has its positives and its negatives. I could look back at all of this and say, well, intuitively, I should have done this. Intuitively, I knew this. I had a feeling that was going to happen, so on and so forth. And how many times do we kick ourselves for not paying attention to that intuition. And the ironic part about it is, you guys, so many people are like, if I could just if I could just open my intuition and my psychic abilities were able to come online, everything, I would be in flow then, right? Not necessarily. Once I start speaking light language, I'll be able to heal and do energy healing. I'll be able to heal all of those things in my body. So I'll be in flow, right? Not necessarily. There's always something coming up in our lives that are patterns that maybe we have created in this lifetime over and over again, or brought back into this reality from other lifetimes over and over again. And I feel strongly that part of why some of us are going through this from time to time, and I'm going to use me as a for instance, I'm seeing this from a different perspective. Whereas all of this stuff might have happened to me, let's say a year ago, and I might have gone into judgment, blame, victim, right? I can't believe I let that happen. I didn't listen to whatever it might be. This time around, as this is happening to me, I feel I did go through frustration. I'm going to put it right there. As a human, we're going to have those experiences. But at this moment, and by the way, this is all very recent for me, I kind of think it's funny. I have to laugh because at this stage of my awareness, personally, for me not to laugh would be a very mistaken opportunity. And this is what I'm sharing. This has given me an opportunity to look at some of the experiences I've had recently and go, wow, that's interesting. Let's play with that for a minute and see why that happened. Let's look at the timing of when that happened. What were you thinking about when this happened? What was running through your mind? Therefore, what thoughts were you creating? Therefore, what thoughts were you projecting out into the universe to be reflected back to you? How were you feeling as you experienced these things? What were you eating and drinking before this happened? What did this give other people the opportunity to respond, how they responded? And I'm going to share the ripple effect that I realized. Because I have not paid attention to my vehicle as well as I should have, my car quit in the middle of a massively busy intersection. And I was frustrated because the person on the phone couldn't find me, and they kept misreading my location. It was just like literally Mercury was in massive retrograde. And I'm sitting here with cars going around me honking, not realizing I've got my hazards on. And it's just utter chaos. And so I had to take a deep breath and just go, thank you so much. I said a prayer because I watched other people, what happened to me because of my choices. And it could just be the car broke down, but partly because of my choices, maybe all because of my choices. Now it's rippling into other people's lives. Somebody might be late for work because I just prayed that nobody else would get into a car accident because of their overreaction to my situation, or their overreaction not knowing what was going on in front of them. I've got goosebumps as I share this story. That was a massive aha for me. So I had this realization in that moment that, number one, I could look at it as a gift. I'm giving these other drivers an opportunity to be patient. I'm giving these other drivers an opportunity to be patient with themselves and others, to be patient with me. I'm giving them an opportunity to recognize that they aren't able to see what's in front of them. They can only pay attention to what's going on right in front of them. They can't see 10 cars ahead, but they can see the next couple cars as something's going on. And I just kind of asked for that awareness and clarity to come into the people that were around me so that an accident didn't happen because of their reaction. And it was fine. Everything worked out. My car was able to be started. I said a little prayer and I was able to get off the side of the road out of utter chaos. And in that time, I had to get out of fight or flight because I was so stressed that was going to happen. That was my main concern. An accident because of my car quitting. Now, I'm sharing all of this because that's my perspective now that I'm holding. I don't know that that would have been my perspective a year ago. My perspective a year ago might have gone back to what I said a minute ago. Judgment, blame. Oh, I can't believe no one's stopping to help me. I can't believe nobody is even offering to push my car off to the side. But honestly, that's not what I really wanted. I just wanted cars to go around me, and I wanted, AAA to come and help get me out of the way. I wanted to be able to just get out of the way. And it happened. It all worked out fine. Also recently, I had an interaction with a friend of mine. I just have to share this with you guys because she thought there was a massive spider in her house. You're gonna love this, Kat. But this is the value to synchronicity. So we agreed to go over, my husband and I agreed to go over and get this spider out of her house. And it was like, the way she described it, it was like, I thought I was gonna see a tarantula. Now, the ironic part about it was, I've been seeing spiders for the last month now. Now here, there's a situation where I might get to see the biggest spider of all, which is a tarantula, in her closet. She was condensed. It was a hairy 5-inch spider. It was a gecko, which are the cutest little lizards, by the way. So we got the gecko out. Everything was fine. But I was able to witness how much we see our reality as one thing, even if it's not that at all. Also, that was enhanced by things that our friend's mom had heard on the radio about these spiders that were coming, essentially. So it also honed into my reality like, wow, the power of suggestion and how important it is to recognize what we are focusing on, what we are paying attention to, because it will show up for us in one way or another. And that was one of the bigger messages that came through. I'm getting a big yes on that one. I have been talking about needing a new car for a while and have been thinking a little bit negatively about it, but then I snap out of it and I'm like, oh, no, it's fine. It's fine. But how often has those thoughts been coagulating in my reality, and then through projection, this happens. And what I'm trying to share is, I know sunburns happen. I know backs go out. I know we have things that happen in our human reality and they're not necessarily our fault. But from another perspective, can I simultaneously take responsibility for the fact that it might be? And this is the biggest message that's been coming through. Can we take responsibility for everything that's showing up in our lives? The whole ho'oponopono, I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you. Even if we don't necessarily think we have anything to forgive or love, or apologize, or give gratitude for. We do, because everything is a reflection of us. So there's a lot of gifts that have shown up for me in this crazy, and I haven't even gone into all the details of the craziness that's happened, over the last 6 months. And for those of you who've watched this video, I've had a lot going on over the last 6 months with health issues and things like that with my loved ones and so on and so forth. And I know that you guys out there, a lot of you are watching and are going through it too, or you have a loved one who is really in it. And in those situations, all we can do is be in a place of, we can be in anger, we can be in fear, we can be in all of those things. But if we can come back and be in a place of gratitude for our loved one, if we can be in a place of gratitude that maybe we are in a position that we can help them as much as we can, little things like that are what are necessary right now for us to survive, for us to get out of survival mode and to come back into a place of empowerment. So I'm empowered by my experiences. Do I feel a little bit like an idiot in some cases? Yes. Am I cancel clearing, deleting that very quickly? Absolutely. Very quickly. Because I certainly don't want to manifest any more of that. And also I'm valuing the other things that came up for me is sometimes we have to ask for help. I talked about this in previous videos. Sometimes we need to ask for prayer. Sometimes we need to receive. Sometimes we need things to happen to us in order to open to receiving from us. That's the message. There's so many more areas I could go into, but I really want to share that because, could have had a meltdown. It's not to say that I didn't have a meltdown in the last 6 months, and we'll talk about that briefly. Let's go there, shall we? What does a meltdown look like in my world? Usually a meltdown involves exhaustion and lots of tears. Can you guys relate? Sometimes we have our hearts open and we feel so much emotion. I'm not saying this is why I had the meltdown or why it might happen again. This is one of the reasons why. And we just feel so humbled that the tears just come. Other times we're so frustrated because we don't feel empowered, because we do feel that it's a buildup of a lot of circumstances. And that can cause this meltdown to occur where we just get frustrated, things break, our bodies fall apart, our cars fall apart. No, my life is not falling apart. Little things have happened to get me to pay attention. Now I want to go to that in just a minute too. So my meltdowns, that's generally what they look like. They usually involve a follow-up with eating some, from my perspective, well-deserved snacks of some sort, whether that be chocolate or ice cream. The ironic part about that is, has anybody else's diets changed? I've now discovered that that doesn't work for me anymore. So I want to make myself feel better with the nice thing of chocolate chip cookies. Jess and Candace, I know you can relate to that. Or Kat with your sourdough bread. Having said that, we all have our things, right? But all of a sudden, my things that I've used as a reward system or as a crutch in the past aren't working anymore. To the point of, if I eat them, I will literally develop some other bodily symptom that tells me, that doesn't work anymore. I am in a state in my bubble that I am being called to rebalance my entire system. Pay attention to how much I'm eating of one thing and how much I'm not eating of something else, because it will manifest almost instantly in my body. Yeah, isn't that fun? And I have moments of frustration with that. However, I'm also trying to see this from a perspective of, I get to try this new food that I actually haven't tried before, or I'm trying out different things. I'm seeking sources to say, maybe I should try this new tea. Maybe I should try this. Part of it is to get us out of our habit. And that's one of the messages coming through, is breaking it all so that more roots, right? Have you ever had a plant that you cut in half and then you have 2 plants now that grow roots, not just one? It's almost like it's giving me an opportunity, if I want to call it that, to explore new avenues of what my body needs, because it's changing. This happens, one version we could say, this happens as you get older anyways. Okay, maybe it does. This happens as all of our hormones change, all of our chemicals in our bodies have to balance out. Okay, but what is creating that change and that shift? If we're evolving as humans, it may not be that same story that is accurate anymore. Sorry, I got a little bit of a distraction there. So let me just kind of rein it back in for a moment. The guides are always sharing with me that everything is an opportunity to grow, to learn, and to see things from a different perspective. And oftentimes I can give a reading for someone and I see what that is being shown to them and why it's being shown to them. But when you're in it, when you're going through whatever it is that you're going through, it's really hard sometimes to see above and beyond, that eagle eyes perspective. and see, okay, what is this teaching me now? We can look back on it sometimes and say, oh, now I know why that happened. Okay, I understand that now. Um, my friend and I, Kat and I, the other day were like, higher self. Okay, you know what's going on. I see that you get it, but I don't know. So give it to me. Let me come into flow so that I can know, but that requires me to be still and know. So I'm going to give an example. When I was sitting in my car, worried about these other people, I just sat for a second, took a deep breath after I had a moment of a freak out, and sent out that energy like a big bubble around me. And it all worked itself out. We create more of whatever it is that we're feeling. It is energetic. It has a ripple effect. So if we did something that we think is going to have a ripple effect, the more we beat ourselves up over it, the worse that ripple effect is going to be, because that carries on that energy. We can stop it, break it, regrow from what we know now. I was behind a car before my car broke down, and I thought, oh, this is a symbol for me, but I don't know what it was. And the license plate was like something about being present. It was, the way I read it through synchronicity was be, like twice, not just once. Okay, be still and know. Okay, now really be still and know. Be with that. I'm getting goosebumps as I share this. And then I think there was like an X and an O. And I was like, this is symbolic. Later on, when I broke down, I was like, okay, Carrie, just be present. Be present. How big can I make my field? How present can I be? X's and O's, hugs and kisses, love, send it out. But there's also like more to that. The axis, the X and the O, there's deeper meanings to that, which I'll decode later. Tic-tac-toe, playing the game. You know how to win this game, right? Okay. When I pulled my car off and I was parked, right in front of me were two doors, and both doors, they were identical, had the letter B on them. And I was just like, all right, okay, universe. Not only that, I had a police officer that pulled up like right next to me. So I was like, okay, we got you, right? We've got your back. The angels, the guides, our higher selves, the universe, just be. You've got two doors you can walk through. They're actually similar choices. Maybe you can make both choices. Maybe you can make multiple choices now in this multidimensional reality and kind of sit with both of them at the same time and play with that a little bit. So I know that this is going to come into more of a synchronicity. I didn't get back to the spider. Did I get back to the spider? Spiders have been coming up in my reality a lot lately. And I think I recorded this at the beginning, but I'm not sure about the gecko. Our reality and what we're witnessing. Bottom line is, our spiders are all about what web are we weaving? What are we creating? Let's create. It's time to create. It's time to create. It's time to create. What are we dreaming into reality? Lizards, right? Our dream time. It's all connected. So those are the messages that have been coming in my world. And by the way, this video is to share my human experience that other humans might be experiencing as well. Sometimes we think because we have certain gifts and abilities, we've got it all together. Oh, that's where I want to end on this note. Back into flow. So now I'm in a space of what would feel good right now. Carrie, get back into flow. But the funny thing is, we can have these instances happen to us, circumstances, if we want to call it that, and we can still be in flow about it. Sure, the circumstance maybe pulled us into a different state of mind for a moment. Sure, we might have reacted or had an emotion that was a huge charge for us. But again, how long are we sustaining that emotion for is where it then ripples out into our reality. And we can still be in flow even when we're in the middle of a crisis. Mine was a miniature crisis, but when it's a deeper crisis, as in the form of a loved one being really sick or ourselves being really sick, it's harder sometimes. It's simple for some, much more challenging for others. So recognizing we are all dealing with our things in a different way, and that's okay. All right, I'm gonna go into a little flow, maybe about this, and we'll see what the guides have to say just in general about the energies. Since I've done sharing my personal experience. Whew. And so the adepts, those that are adept at managing their reality, managing their feelings, so to speak, are still going to potentially be rocked at certain times. For we are each going through an adaptation, a new adapting, if you will, to new energies. So even though we have been used to a certain state or a certain state of flow, what we knew, we must now know. And what we know will be known. Let us play with this for a moment. For many of you are used to adapting, and you have adapted well up until this potential point. Yet, because of the confluence of massive energy surges and purges, it can be difficult at times to now re-assimilate in this new time span, plan words, this new span of time. And so be easy on yourselves, and you will thank yourself later. For those who are adepts are here to help those who are in crises. For those of you who know how to respond accordingly to your environment and know how to manage and balance the energies, you will be called to action in many different circumstances. Yet at other times, and I'm being shown like I was describing earlier, the call to action will be about yourself. And so the more we are able to help one another restore ourselves, our sense of self, back to equanimity, the easier it will be to recalibrate during these times of uncertainty. For many of us are feeling, especially as empathic souls, the soul's growth, and through this growth are growing pains as observed from our perspective. As observed from our higher realms, we are not necessarily I got pulled into like 3 different spaces right there. I'm just going to say what I'm seeing. So I'm seeing like we're there too. We can see, right, from a higher view, a higher perspective, but it's not always going to be that way. What they're showing is they can see from their perspective that it's not always going to be that way for us, because we need to experience these emotions at times so that we can become more adept. I keep hearing, go deeper, go deeper, go to the depths, right? Become more resolute so that the bigger energies that come in can be balanced. I'm hearing the balance factor. Ooh. So I'm hearing factor 8. Don't know what that means right now, but by the way, this summer I'll be doing a lot more in flow kind of readings about quantum the quantum reality and quantum language. If you guys are interested, I might do some workshops. We'll see. Okay, I digress. When these energies are big too, you guys, I just want to share, sometimes we can feel really ungrounded, and sometimes that is not necessarily a bad thing, meaning roll with it. When I'm feeling this way, solar activity, I love it. Although I also get heightened emotions. I get super hungry. I get super thirsty. Then I'm not hungry at all. And I know I have other, there's a lot of stuff going on. So kind of play with it. If you're hungry, eat. If you're not hungry, don't eat. Do drink water. You know, maybe throw in some electrolytes if you're not used to having electrolytes. But anyways, I digress because I've done a lot of videos on that. But what I'm being shown is everything here and all at once. So sometimes it's okay to kind of let that wave wash through you. And I'm hearing get you to do something different. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier, like 2 doors. We could go with this, you could go with that. So I'm just seeing a reference to allowing this energy to flow through us, to flush things out, to allow us to become flushed, to become agitated, to agitate and to pull up all those little specks of self-doubt, of shame, of blame, of lack of self-worth, of a victim, whatever it might be. Let those emotions kind of, I'm hearing, run their course. And I'm going to go back to what I was talking about with the equanimity and balance. And so the charge that is coming in to allow this energy to be absorbed or reabsorbed and going back in again and going out again and being reabsorbed is a chemical alliance, if you will. For you are in alliance with your body. Each individual cell inside of you is a network of you. Aw, I'm gonna get emotional. See, here we go. Aw, my little cells. Each individual cell inside of you is part of your net worth. It is your network of living light energy. It is breathing and talking. Each cell is talking and communicating to one another within your own planetary system. And so the more you communicate with it, the more it recognizes those communication signals. For right now, many are feeling jammed in their communication signals. And these communication signals are robust. And you are busting through the old programming. I'm trying to hold back and not go into complete rhyming right now. Woo! So it can be a little bit more clear. Keep it simple. And so this is creating a robust sense of breaking through the barriers of the old. This need to get out, to see more, to do more, to access more, and then feeling complete self-doubt and needing to close the door and shut down is all perfectly normal. For you are oscillating between multiple worlds and realities. Even though we would say from a higher perspective you are already in the new reality, we will also say that because of your habitual patterning and the neuroplasticity in the brain that is reconfiguring itself and the neurotransmissions that are being transmitted through synchronicity, through the vision chords, we could say, the musical alliance that you have created through your own visceral, visual, holographic projection, is keeping you anchored in a different direction than where you are going. And so this is not applicable to all, but we would say many. For all of you have been born into this soup, and now you have been upgraded into a new soup, a new suit of light codes that are embedded within, that have been embedded within, that are embedded within are being activated. So your cellular communication is blowing up, we could say. And this can cause certain wiring to fray. We can say this causes certain transmissions, not quite able to line up. So I'm being shown that like we're on the right track, and then all of a sudden we do something that takes us in a different direction, and we're like, wait a minute, I was on track, then my car just quit. Like what is this? And what they're showing me is we're just not quite 100% lined up, because the wires aren't quite fully, those two trees. So I'm being shown those two doors again with branches growing out of it. Then those branch back together. And then that creates a double circuitry. Now remember though, they're all rooted from the original root. But what we're doing is we're creating more access, more everything. And so it is difficult from a quantum perspective to communicate in a linear representation of what is happening. But if you look at the cellular network that is embedded within each of the human skin technology, we would invite you to think of a quantum computer and the technology of that quantum computing. It is a machine that has been wired, if you will, through plasma type technology that is beyond time from one perspective, yet it has been created within time from one perspective, because it was created at a particular time or certain time on the clock during the world of inventions. And yet it grows just as we were born into a particular time field. But through this field, we have created together through a community time. Boy, oh boy. And so we constantly go back to say time and time again that you have changed time. Therefore, the time it takes for you to catch up with you will be different according to the resonance that each of you contributes to the whole. WHOLE. But I'm also seeing a black hole, and that has reference to I'm hearing again waveform analytics. So I'm being called to play with this for a moment. So let's do it. All right, so I just pulled this up. I was going to share screen. I'm on sciencedirect.com, and I'll share screen in just a minute. But essentially what I'm seeing is, I'm going to say this out loud, but I'm going to ask to channel a little bit more about this so I can get more clarity, if I can bring it through today, as all over the place as I am. For a reflected signal, waveform analysis can be used to accurately point out the reflected correlation. Oh, there we go. Reflected peak delay relative. Oh, I was just talking about the delay, the future. We're catching up to it. This has to do with hydrology. So I don't know why I'm seeing this, but it says, let me pause. Okay, so I'm just sharing screen here. And basically I was being called to share the picture of what it looks like. So here we are, that's the direct signal, right? But there's a delay, and they're calling it altimetry. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. So there's a delay, and then there's the specular point, and then the reflected signal is all the way out here. So there's something about that that's relevant for what's happening for us in time. So I'm just gonna stop share for a second, and maybe we'll come back to that later. We play with waveform analytics. There are so many ways that we could tune into this wave analysis, if you will. But in this particular chamber, in which we call time, I'm being shown a gun, and I'm being shown, after you shoot a gun, the sound that you hear later, or when a plane goes through warp speed or whatever, it's like you get the sonic boom. And so we are actually in delay from one perspective, and this is necessary from another perspective, from the perspective of the one, holding many different perspectives. I'm seeing the reference to Einstein and his whole talking about, if you see a train accident, you've got one person standing here, one person standing here, and one person standing here. Each person is going to hold a different perspective, because they're going to have seen different things. But more importantly than that, they're going to have an imprint, and they're going to then reflects back to them what they think they saw. Just like I don't know if I deleted this earlier, but my friend's mom thought she saw a 5-inch hairy spider. And in fact, it was a perfectly smooth gecko. But at night, which is so valuable for this, so thank you. And it was symbolic for me too, for the whole spider lizard thing. What are we dreaming? What are we creating? But where was I going with that? So here we are, right? What she saw, what was really there, were two different things. And that's happening for a lot of us. Just because we see something and it looks a certain way does not make it how it actually looks from a higher perspective or from our perspective. And so we invite those to recognize that the time is inconsistent with the programming that has been entered into the cockpit, play on words. For even though we may feel as if we are the ones in control of this, what is in control is the patterns that we have dialed into the machine that we are in the process of steering. And in another way of saying this, we are the machine, the technology that has been pre-programmed by our habits, memories, life responses, chemicals, growth patterns, so on and so forth. And that has been harnessed in order to future project from other entities' perspectives what to co-create or what will be co-created. And let us play with this for a moment. We recognize that there are many on your planetary system that are playing with time. From a very basic sense, how we just described this, they were able to tune in to how this works before you were, potentially. So I'm saying, like, those of you watching this video or myself, like, I don't know how time actually works. I mean, I do from a broader perspective. Clearly, I'm channeling that information from my higher self, but I just been going through my day and creating things based on what I know, based on what I've learned, based on what I've adapted to, based on a clock that I've been told works a certain way, even though I don't quite understand it. So I've conformed to that story of how time operates. And certain people have conformed to it so much that they're unable to break that pattern. And so there's lag time, or what they're showing is this delay or altimetry. And so there are some, they're showing me like some people that are quantum running and just leaping. And then I'm seeing them get bounced back, like boing, and they get bounced back to before they took that running start. Almost like there's an invisible field that we're in the process of breaking that barrier. Again, I'm seeing that sonic boom, you know, when a plane makes that bubble because it broke the sound barrier. And some of us are plowing right through that, and we're already on the other side, and we're reaching back through that barrier, pulling people with us. But we're the ones that are, oh, I'm getting goosebumps. We're the ones that are creating that. We're able to out-create some of the old patterns. And again, I'm being brought back into quantum computing. So we invite you to play with this. For the ergonometry in this particular diagram that is being shown is relevant to understand moving forward the path that we are on. So when we look at lag time, we are actually creating a bridge. We are forming a system. While some are being bounced back to a previous timeline, or what seems as if they are taking 2 steps forward and 1 huge bounce back, is merely an after effect of the game that has been dialed into the program that the human has been dialed into. And so we say this with love, because even though we feel as if we have been held back at times, This is a play or a program that we have all agreed to play in to a certain extent. And now the play has been outrun, so to speak. Time is up. And that's a play on words. I'm seeing time is up in a different dimension. So the old system is desperately hanging on to the old contortionism, the contortionism of time, in order to keep us locked into a habitual timeline or strategy to predict the future. Yet the future is unpredictable in the same methodology, and that is I'm being shown, like, from one perspective, they can do that, if you want to call it that, because a certain amount of energy is being projected into that reality. Therefore, they are successful to a certain extent. But because there's so many more of us that are breaking through that barrier in a quantum way, it's having a ripple back effect, which keeps changing the outcome of the time, right, that they're trying to keep us on. Does that make sense? So if you expand out the bandwidth, all of a sudden they have to scramble to expand too. But we're expanding it at such a quantum rate, even though it doesn't feel like that sometimes, like today, for example, for me, it isn't able to be, they're not able to adapt to it as quickly. What I'm being shown is the human is much more, I'm being shown a lot of things. It's pretty exciting. So those of us who are recognizing this, or in recognition of this higher directive, meaning our higher perspective, meaning the higher self creating the directive, we also have the power as a human to collaborate with the future version of us. We have the freedom of choice. We have the ability to choose how we respond at every given moment, and we have the ability to choose what we would like our future to look like from this perspective now. And this perspective now is equally valued to that perspective of you in the future. Therefore, when you look back from the future on the perspective you hold now, it will all have changed in relationship to the you in the future version of you. That makes sense? And we play with this because this is how you can lighten up. You do not have to carry the whole load, so to speak, of creating this new reality. Each individual person on this diagram of this wave is carrying this reality with them. And so we are all doing it together. So as we hold our hands back and look back at what is being created behind us and do it in a state of love, we are able to pull from that past version even of us and bring them forward to this now moment, rather than living in the past and feeling misdirected and feeling misled and feeling like a victim. We are able to empower ourselves with the co-creative abilities that each and every one of us holds. We hold a different frequency and vibration in the now moment. No matter what dimension we exist within, we always have that ability. And so we are creating this reality in a fluctuation of energies that is actually being enhanced by the fluctuation of energies coming from the sun, coming up from the depths of the earth. And this goes back to what I was saying earlier with the adepts. The adepts are very aware already of some of these changes, because it's almost, what I'm hearing is, it's in their bones. They might have been working at this longer. They might be more connected to the earth patterns. They might be able to see certain things that other adepts can't. And we'd like to play with that for a moment. Just because one person is really good at something does not make them perfect or perfected at everything, that's a play on words, in the material realm. And while some people are adepts at things and the perfection of the material realm, they are not adept with handling their emotions or feeling into their intuition or playing with the healing modalities. And not everyone came here to do all of that. So recognizing that we are living in this reality that is a multifaceted diamond. There are many different angles, there are many different colors, there are many different wavelengths, all wrapped within this beautiful package. Let us get back onto the subject of time and end on that note. I'm seeing, let me get out my whiteboard. So what I'm being shown are like, let's just look at these two timelines. And if you notice, the dots are nodes, and they're in different sections. One at the purple, the nodes are at the peaks, and the other one, the nodes are at the valleys. Not sure why I drew this yet, but we're gonna work it out together. So I'm being guided to connect the dots. So from one perspective, I could connect the dots through a straight line on the bottom and through a straight line at the top. But I'm also being guided to connect the dots in a zigzag pattern. And I might go into flow on this. So now I've connected the dots, I've connected these, and I've connected the top dots, right? So those were all, I guess I should have done that first. Then I connected them through here. So I've got these different lines, and I'm being called to see the pattern. I don't see the pattern. Do you see the pattern? We'll play with that. All right, so I was guided to redraw it a little bit bigger, and then I drew it this way. Oops. Let's see if I can get it on there. There it is. All right, so now I'm seeing two, right? Parallel, maybe realities, and these are nodes, and these are nodes. These are high nodes, notes. These are low notes. And the guides were talking about us being the time bridge. So this was the wave, original wave on the high notes. This was the original wave on the low notes, and they weren't touching. But now I was seeing bounce, 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 bounce. And now this kind of looks like a spiral. If I were to draw it in a circle, it would be spiraling time. That's what they're trying to describe. I don't know if I did a very good representation of that, but we'll give it a try and keep going. Each of these nodes or parcels, if you will, and this is a reference to land, because when I was looking at that, it reminded me of striations in the earth, and that's how you can tell time in the earth, or like tree rings. But then I'm also being shown that those are pockets or bubbles. I have a feeling I'm going to drop into some really deep channeling in a minute. I'm trying to keep this simple. So these parcels, if you will, or placements in the field that constitutes, that's a play on words, stitches together, constitutes energy bubbles in relationship to moments in time architecture are compacted, if you will, with a myriad of information, and information is stored within these capsules. These are encapsulated within the earth. And I'm seeing they're using an example like if you had a battle and it was a battlefield, and that battlefield, let's say the Civil War, absorbed a lot of that information and it stuck. And what I'm hearing is that's kind of what we've done, is we've created this time bubble. And that's what they're showing me we're bouncing off of. We projected this, and this is just one view of what they're saying. We projected our reality out ahead of us. Okay, two things. Let's just keep it simple. And that created a field. And now we're walking into that field, but it's almost like the green screen. It's the green screen from Wizard of Oz, right? There's been beings behind it saying, oh, okay, you want this, look. You want this, create more of this. And we've been focusing on it with our habits, our patterns, our words, and that has become real for us. And so that's, let's say, that lower red. If I put it back this way, down here, and it became like this straight line, right? If we want to call it that, those connected. So this maybe wasn't connected before, but the more we focused on it, the heavier it got and the more we walked that path, okay? Or walked up it, if you want to call it that. In the meantime, other people, the adepts, which we all are, by the way, you guys, in our own way, from my perspective, also are creating. But we're veering off in another direction. And this is probably in part to what they're talking about with the split. But what I'm being shown is it's not really split because you can't really disconnect entirely. I'm just going to tune into that. So we are like, let's bring this Red Rover, bring so-and-so right over, right? Like all of a sudden we're starting to crisscross and hang on, but not in the sense of hanging on to the old. We're doing it with people. I'm getting goosebumps. We're doing it with energy. We're showing, the grass is greener kind of thing, but we're not. We're showing you are the grass. You are the color. You are creating this. And people are like, what's over there? And then all of a sudden, or people are getting more into flow. And that barrier that was there, the green screen, is now we're just kind of walking on through that going, yeah, that doesn't feel real to me anymore. And it loses its, so I also, I'm being called to go with this. So I will. This is gonna be a long one, sorry guys. When I had gone into, I'm seeing funnels and some of those timelines, okay, I'm being called to draw this out. I need a bigger whiteboard. I had one, got rid of it. All right, so what I was called to draw were funnels because I had seen funnels. I've done a lot of astral projecting, out-of-body experiences. I've seen other dimensions. But when I was first going through my awakening or remembering, I like to call it, or because I've gone through it a couple times, sometimes you go through it and then you decide, that's a little scary or I don't understand it, and we weave in and out of it. But I had seen these funnels all over the earth. And at times, in a vision I had, I stopped time and I climbed up out of this giant tornado. And it looked like cotton candy. It was like pink and gray. And I stopped it. I climbed all the way to the top. And all of a sudden I was looking and it was like I was in a giant spider web of glowing nebula. Not nebula, web. Like picture being inside of a funnel spider's spider web. Kind of scary. Oh, speaking of spider, hello. Anyways, but it wasn't. It was beautiful. And there were infinite funnels. Now at the time I didn't know what that meant, but I knew at the time what it meant was you have the power to choose which of these funnels you want to be in and stop the chaos and be the center of this space. And what's ironic is, so the ironic part about this is, so sorry, I got to keep getting interruptions, but they're all good interruptions. So here's what the symbol, earlier I'd been called to look at the symbol. So I was called to draw all of these tornadoes. What's ironic is we have these funnels, which I know in my drawing looks like snow cones. I always tend to base things around food. So we've got these little snow cone funnels, and these funnels are all, they were nodes, they were bubbles, they were energy, and now I've turned them into triangles, which are actually funnels, which are actually waveforms, which are actually toroidal fields from one perspective. But I kind of am getting this, well, I'm just going to show what I drew. So I drew these waves, I combined the funnels, and then if you draw this shape and you pull up this shape, it makes a star. And if you think of a Merkaba field, it's creating another field, is basically what I'm being shown from my perspective. Now, also, I was called to draw what does that look like if you were to um, actually put those shapes together and kind of combine. Anyway, so it's two upside down triangles drawn together, and I see them spinning. So I see it as not necessarily a split in timelines. I see it as a merge, and it's creating a new form, a new energy. And so it's almost like if you picture one of these in between each of those, it's drawing together this energy. And I want to say part of it has to do with us pulling up what's still useful for us, kind of combining these frequencies and energies so that the stuff that isn't usable can be spit out. If you think of two black holes coming together, which I know black holes aren't necessarily what we think they are, but that energy shoots out, and I think Dan Winters talks about it like it's a squirt gun, right? So it's centripetal. It comes into, it's not a high, it's not a low, it comes back into this space spinning and creates this toroidal field that can then absorb and magnify, is what I'm hearing, this new frequency and this new energy and give birth to another timeline. And I was also having dreams when I used to dream about these other, well, I wasn't dreaming, I was having out of body experiences and I just didn't realize it. But I would travel and I would see these funnels. And oftentimes the funnels were giving me an opportunity to move through them. They were like portals. But I didn't realize the portals could also be timelines. Lately, when I've been dreaming about them, they're not fully formed. I'm seeing them drop down, but they're not like, they don't look cohesive. It's almost like when you see a tornado getting ready to form and then it kind of fizzles out. Those are what I've been seeing lately instead of these really well formed. So from my perspective, we are clearing out some of those really hard timelines that were really embedded into the earth, that were not necessarily for the greater expansion. And those are starting to fall apart, but we still have the remnants of those timelines in the form of habits, patterns, and so on. And they're trying to pull our direction, our attention back to cohabitate and playing with this. To make them more cohesive. The more we focus our energy on something, the more cohesive it begins, or it stabilizes it more. So if you think about what's on TV right now, what is being shown, I made this comment to a dear friend of mine saying it's just the same thing wrapped in a different package. What we're witnessing and watching isn't really that different from what's been going on for a long time. We're just seeing it from a different perspective. We're seeing more of it. We're seeing, and we're observing it holding a different frequency and pattern. So anyways, I could go, that's a whole other video in itself. So I'm going to kind of pull this all together. So as we reconstruct time, or we deconstruct that which is no longer constructive at this time, we come together and create a new model. And the new model is a reorganization of different factors that have yet to be combined in. Because the new factorization gives us a more, I'm hearing maturization. It helps us to see things from a more mature, broader perspective that allows us to literally turn on a dime. Play on words. Never quite figured out that analogy. My guides use it a lot. So I know it's fast, turn on a dime, but there's something having to do with 10, maybe? Anyways, two sides of a coin. Anyways. We play with this analogy because it is an idea that the value system is embedded within the time constraints. And so the value system, or the economic play out, if you will, that is playing out in front of us, has been organized based on a system of information that is no longer fully encapsulated within this new time band, meaning the information is at this time distorted, or was distorted, or always has been distorted, but nevertheless, we still accepted it, believed in it, and played with it. I'm seeing Play-Doh. And so the more we focused and the more we followed that directive, the more it became part of who we were. Yet now who we are is no longer held within that same constraining system. And so we are in a present mode of breaking through the barriers that we have been holding on to for a long time. So this can feel uncomfortable and it can feel constraining even in itself, much as the butterfly must feel constrained before it breaks through its own barrier and is able to fly and to merge with the air and energy that it is now a different, I'm seeing literally the shape of a butterfly, the butterfly effect. It's all connected. We are also growing our own capacity for flight. And so this at the moment can feel as if we are being pulled down. And I'm being called to go back to that picture. For those of us that are building bridges, we're here, but we're feeling like we're being pulled down here to pull this up. But in actuality, we're sustaining from what I'm being shown, we're allowing for the opportunity for those to kind of that are ready for growth but can't quite seem to break through that barrier. It's like we're buying them time is what I'm hearing. And that's a play on words, because buying time has to do with value and you're really not purchasing anything. But we're giving them an opportunity to see the value in themselves and to see through the distortions. We're also giving ourselves that opportunity, because the more we do this, we're not doing it for one another. We're doing it as one another. We're doing it as we hold together this new bandwidth, essentially. So I'm going to end on that note because that was a lot of information to kind of digest. If you've made it this far into the video, thank you so much for tuning in and sharing these videos with anyone else that you think might benefit from it or find it expansive. And in the meantime, in love and light, namaste.